Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
It's our tradition to go around the room, round robin, and introduce ourselves. If you're new or been on for a while, please let us know so we can welcome you. My name is Grisha.
Dennis. George. Jack.
My name is Judith.
My name is Ray. Larry.
And Tim.
Matthew.
Jeff. Dana.
My name is Clint. I got it for a moment.
Don.
My name is Cass.
Mike.
Jason.
Tom. My name is Rich. I'm Joe.
Greg.
Vin. Francesco.
I'm Rick. It's my first time here.
Max.
Scott.
I'm Brad.
Jay.
My name is Joe.
I'm Roger.
I'm Al.
Peter. Michael.
I'm George.
Kevin. Welcome, everyone. And welcome and thank you, Susan, for coming. Susan Moon is a writer, editor, and lay teacher in the Soto Zen tradition. She leads Buddhist retreats and teaches writing workshops in the U.S. and abroad. Her books include This Is Getting Old, Zen Thoughts on Aging with Humor and Dignity, The Hidden Lamp, Stories from 25 Centuries of Awakened Women, with co-editor Florence Caplow, and most recently, What Is Zen? Plain Talk for a Beginner's Mind, with Zoketsu Norman Fischer. So, thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Grisha. It's great to be here. I've been here lots of times. I think for once a year for about 10 years. And it feels very homey to be here. I was thinking that by now I really feel at home here. And I always say this, but I'll say it again, that I just love being so, as a straight woman, being so at home as part of a gay men's sangha. It just feels wonderful that you invite me and gracious, and so I appreciate your sense of sangha and the community that I really feel here that you have together, and to see familiar faces over the years as well as new faces. Welcome to you. Today I wanted to talk about one of the precepts. I'd like to talk about things that I've been thinking about and kind of what's up for me. And I do, in my own sangha, the Everyday Zen Sangha, I do a lot of work with people studying the precepts and preparing for a ceremony we call Jukai, or taking the precepts. And I enjoy working with people to study the precepts. And in our tradition of Zen, they're an important part of our practice. And I think in every kind of Buddhist tradition there are precepts, and there are 5 of them that all traditions share, and some traditions have more besides. But the five basic precepts that are shared by all Buddhist traditions for lay people are: I vow not to kill, but to nurture all life. I vow not to take what is not given, but to cultivate generosity. I vow not to misuse sexuality, but to treat every person with respect. I vow not to engage in false speech, but to speak and listen from the heart. I vow not to intoxicate body or mind of self or others, but to cultivate a mind that sees clearly. And they seem to be about specific behaviors, those precepts, and in one sense they are. but what's kind of wonderful about them is that each one kind of contains all of the others, and they're very broadly, at least they're very broadly understood in our Zen tradition. For example, I vow not to kill. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, there's a commandment like that, thou shalt not kill. But thou shalt not kill is a little bit different than I vow not to kill, because, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it in that thou shalt not kill, but it's something that comes from the outside. It's a commandment from God to us. And in the Buddhist tradition, I vow not to kill it's a statement of intention coming from within that we choose to take. So we are already sort of fully on board with it as soon as we say it, because it's our vow. And it assumes, really, that we're not going to be able to keep it, because it includes stepping on ants, taking antibiotics. I mean, there's so many ways in which we do kill just to be alive, and as well as ways that, I mean, those ways seem not that unwholesome. I mean, Sikhs try not to, or no, it's the Jains, I guess, who try not to kill even insects by wearing masks so they don't breathe, but they're still killing tiny little infinitesimal creatures, microbes and things. And then there are also, what does it mean for, our taxes? We pay taxes that create weapons that kill people far away. So it's a precept that we can't really keep to the letter. And so to take the precepts in this way of, this is my intention, and I'm going to just keep renewing my intention. And in our tradition, we have a monthly ceremony called the full moon ceremony, where we come together and we say, all my ancient twisted karma born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. So you say, okay, I've broken the precepts with my body, with my speech, and with my thoughts, but I now am taking them again, and then you take them over again. And so they are alive in our lives. They're not, if you break one, you don't have to think, oh my God, I've blown it, and there's no hope for me. Instead, you think, oh, well, I guess I must be a human being, and I guess all the more power to me that I'm ready to take a new vow and think about it again. How am I going to engage with this precept? How am I going to nurture life? And that's where the positive side of the precept comes in handy, that it's not just about not doing something, it's about doing something positive, like nurturing life. So, because they come up as they're a process, they're not like a test you take and you check at the end of each month which ones did I break, but it's more of a process of, with every breath you can be renewing your intention to live for the benefit of all beings, which is what it really comes down to. And my teacher is Norman Fischer, who the founder of Everyday Zen, and as well as my friend and co-writer now, but not too long ago, after I retired from my regular editing job, I was kind of at loose ends, and I wasn't really sure what was the focus of my life, and I was involved in a lot of projects and writing and some teaching, and I had all kinds of things I wanted to do and was doing, but I felt this sort of uncertainty about what was the frame of my life, what was the purpose of my life, how did I really structure it? And I felt like I had no organizing principle. And I was talking to Norman saying, I just don't know what the organizing principle of my life is. And it's very painful. Who am I anyway? When I get out of bed in the morning, what's the point? And maybe some of you know this feeling. And Norman said, what do you mean you don't have any organizing principle? Of course you do. Your organizing principle is the precepts. That's your organizing principle. So I said, oh, yeah, okay, that's great. And so it made me feel good, and it kind of makes room for everything, but I can still say to myself, okay, I live for the benefit of all beings. That's my organizing principle. And so it's helped me a lot just to they're kind of a gift. I think of the precepts as a gift to me, and an invitation to me to bring forth my best intentions, whatever I'm doing. And sometimes I manage it better than other times, but it's just an ongoing invitation, really, that I'm very grateful for. So I want to kind of communicate that sense of joy in having these precepts and guidelines for our lives to you, that we can really love them, and they're not there to be going like this to us. They're there to say, yeah, be your full self, be your full self. You're a human being, be your full human self. And if you didn't break any precepts ever, and you didn't ever do anything wrong, well, you'd be dead. That's all. I mean, what would you do all the time? What would you do all day if you already had it all right, you know? So, the one that I wanted to focus on a little bit more today is the fifth one. I vow not to intoxicate body or mind of self or others, but to cultivate a mind that sees clearly. And, you know, when I heard, I imagine maybe some of you think, as I might have thought at different times in my life, oh my God, oh no, she's going to tell me I can't have any more wine anymore. But, it's, again, that precept too can be taken into in a lot of ways and interpreted in a lot of ways. And it's interesting, though, that in Buddhist time, the original statement from Buddha was where the precepts were like training. They were guidelines for training as a bodhisattva. I undertake the training to abstain from fermented and distilled intoxicants that are the basis for heedlessness. That's from 2,500 years ago. So I find it comforting that 2,500 years ago, people were worrying about, the Buddha's disciples were worrying about, I've got to refrain from intoxicants. Distilled, I mean, it was alcohol then. So this is a familiar issue in human life and human culture. And it also says here that are the basis for heedlessness. So that might be a qualification of it. If you, the point here is the heedlessness can lead to harm and to hurting people. Yourself as well as others. If you're heedless, then that's not the way you want to be. And in our positive statement of saying to cultivate a mind that sees clearly, that's the opposite of heedlessness. So we can also, there's a much broader view of intoxicants that Thich Nhat Hanh takes in his teachings. And to intoxicate means to take in poison. So to abstain from intoxicants means to not take in any poison. So what is poison? What is poison to us? And there's a lot of things besides intoxicating substances like alcohol or certain drugs that are also could be seen as poison to us. And Thich Nhat Hanh's expression of the fifth precept includes this statement: I am determined not to use alcohol or any other intoxicant or to ingest food or other items that contain toxins, such as certain TV programs, magazines, books, films, and conversations. So he really takes a big view of this. And his students, over the years, you know, they would take vows with him, and they did not drink at all or use any drugs. But that varies from tradition to tradition. And what I do think is helpful is to look at my own life and think about, okay, what are the toxins in my own life? Do I have activities that are toxic to me that I'm kind of addicted to, or that cause harm? And what are the substances that I take in? He includes certain foods, you know. Well, I find sugar actually is kind of a poison that I have to work with, you know. I have to be careful. If I have some sugar, I want more sugar. again, it's an invitation, and it has come up for me in recent months since the presidential election, basically, and before, where another toxin that I've been worrying about is the news. And I've become sort of addicted to watching more and more and more news and being more and more upset by it. And whatever your politics, there's a lot of destabilizing news. And there's been a lot of toxins in the news, I think, and in the language too. I mean, we in the public discourse, including the president's discourse, there's a lot of sort of toxic speech as well. So there's some kind of hunger that I've had of just, well, oh my God, what's now what? You know, that is horrifying, but it's also, then you can have a conversation with somebody and get into these sort of downward spiraling conversations. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? It's so terrible. And so I've also taken a vow, my own vow, not to engage in those conversations that are just gloom and doom conversations that aren't really going anywhere. So thinking about how do I work with this particular kind of toxic substance of the news, I also feel very strongly that it's my responsibility as a citizen to have stay in touch with what's going on in places in this country and parts of the world where people don't have the comfortable, privileged life that I have, and I'm relatively safe. And so if I didn't pay any attention to the news, I really wouldn't know what I need to know about things that are going on right even in my own town, you know, that I need to keep track of. So we all have our own way of engaging with this and deciding what's right for us to take up. And I think it's important, if we have a Buddhist practice, it's really important to cultivate equanimity as a basic stance so that we can be helpful, and so that we can be steady, and so that we can express calm to others and not just be frantic all the time. So, and also, I mean, this is just in terms of thoughts about activism. I think it really makes sense for us in this time of millions and millions of emails and petitions and things, for people to just choose something that they can do or care about and maybe do well. If you want to become involved, I really encourage people to choose one front on which to focus or act, and find community and be with friends, and not think that you have to take it all on. We can get sort of carried away with thinking, well, it's all my job to fix everything right now. And also, we have our lives that we've been living already, trying to do the best we can. Maybe we're doing important work that doesn't seem to have some immediate political consequences, but we can't completely carry on with business as usual. But on the other hand, we need to be faithful and true to ourselves and our expression and our positive love of what we have to give. So I think it's for each person to just find out what their balance is there. And this is not really this part of my talk is what I've just been saying, that it doesn't really relate that much to the fifth precept, except in the sense of just cultivating clarity of mind. But we also do have issues that have nothing to do with politics about, or I suppose at some level, maybe everything does, I don't know, but sometimes maybe we do choose to take intoxicating substances in certain situations, and of course with medications and painkillers, that we need to use medications that might be mind-altering. I had knee replacements, both knees at once, a few years ago, and the recovery was quite uncomfortable. uncomfortable is the polite word that doctors use for really painful. And I was using some, I forget what it was, oxycodone or something, a very strong painkiller. But I tried to use not too much of it, and I knew that people can get into trouble with it and get addicted to it. And I even have some friends who had trouble getting off of it after surgery. So I just figured that was my responsibility in a way to know that and to balance my pain with what was the amount that was fine to take. So that's kind of a metaphor for things that we face in our lives all the time, of how much, okay, well, I just really want to do some more crossword puzzles on the computer, or I want to do some mindless activity that sort of numbs your mind, or I don't know, computer games. I've never gotten into that, but I guess that's another world. Well, maybe you allow yourself. Okay, I'm gonna, it'll just settle me down. I'm gonna do this. Well, I like to do crossword puzzles, which is a totally mindless activity, but it's kind of relaxing. So I don't have to be using every single second of my day to do something worthy for myself and other beings, I don't think. So we have to allow ourselves some pleasures too, and sensual pleasure. A lot of the intoxicants that under that category are in the realm of sensual pleasure. Human beings really seek the pleasure of the senses. We want to feel good. We don't want to feel pain. That's been a good survival mechanism for the species. That we like to eat food, and we like to be warm, and we like to mate, and we like to be close, and we need these things to survive. So the sensual, and we don't want to touch a hot stove, and we need this. But how much chocolate do we really need? So that's the question. And how many glasses of wine is okay to have once in a while at dinner? So, and then again, what I was saying about the precepts in the beginning, this precept too kind of engages us in an ongoing exploration for ourselves. And sometimes it's necessary to not just make new decisions every day. Sometimes it's necessary to make a decision saying, okay, I'm a person who is better off, I'm not going to ever drink any alcohol at all. Or I'm not going to eat any sugar anymore, or whatever. Those are fine decisions to make too. I'm not saying you can't decide for abstinence, for total abstinence in certain areas. I'm just saying that it's something that comes from inside of us at some level, and sometimes we need help. But Buddha's precepts aren't really, they can't tell us everything we need to know about what to do as we're going through our days. We're the ones living our lives. So, in terms of I've been thinking about this sensual desires, and for example, I think it's possible to separate the desire for something from the thing itself, and I think that's important to do. So, let's say I live at the moment. My niece and her family are living in my house. She's a great cook. She has a couple of kids. And let's say I walk into the kitchen and she has just baked a bunch of chocolate chip cookies, and they're on the stove and they're all there. The minute I smell that smell, something starts happening in my body. Ooh, and the craving just rises immediately, and the hand wants to reach out and take that warm chocolate chip cookie off the tray when the chocolate is still gooey inside, and what could be done? So I'm trying to stop. I'm trying to practice stopping. Maybe I still take the cookie, but stop. What is actually going on? Can I stop for 30 seconds even? and then maybe I'll take the cookie. But say to myself, okay, just stop and pause. What's going on? What am I feeling? Can I locate the desire? Can I locate the craving itself and realize that the craving is in me? The craving is not in that cookie. That's just a chocolate chip cookie sitting on the tray innocently. But it's not innocent in my mind. It's I want it. So that's it's really possible sometimes to realize, oh, there's this craving that I feel so strongly, and maybe there's a different way to respond to it besides putting that cookie in my mouth. Or maybe I'm not going to manage it, but sometimes I can bring up a feeling too of, oh, I have enough already, or there's enough. Some kind of feeling of enough mind comes up, and then there's also, it's amazing how microscopically you can take apart some little thing like eating a chocolate chip cookie. So I'll take it maybe, and then take a bite of it, and then there's a tendency to just stuff it in my mouth and chew it all down and swallow it, and be ready to take another one before I even bother to taste it. So really, really taste each bite. And then sometimes it's not as wonderful as I thought it was going to be if I really taste. I mean, again, I see that their desire is something other than the eating of the cookie. Well, that's just something you can practice and try out sometimes. But I want to look at the second half of this precept to cultivate clarity of mind, because I think this is a really beautiful part of it, where we can begin to see that clarity of mind is a very positive thing. And in terms of drinking, for example, we use the word sobriety for not drinking. And the word sobriety kind of suggests something very gray and dreary and boring, perhaps. It's like a neutral state, unimproved by some substance that's going to make us feel better. And so it's also at the root of all these difficulties with intoxicating substances, there's a feeling that I have recognized in myself at times, which is the desire to kind of improve my mental state. It's as if it's not really okay just the way it is. I want to tweak it a little bit. I want to change the way I feel a little bit. And so I'll do that with some substance. But sobriety itself, is kind of a wonderful thing. To see that as some kind of clarity that we can really appreciate is a big step. And you don't really need to bring in something else. Like Zen Master Dogen, the great Soto Zen master, 13th century Japan, he wrote that nothing needs to be brought in. He wrote about this precept. And then he also said, here is the place, here the way unfolds. He wasn't talking about this precept, but that's a kind of basic thing. Here is the place, here the way unfolds. So right now, right here in this place, and it's certainly true that at this moment we can agree in this place right now, something to do with the way is unfolding. But in every moment in your life, you don't have to rush off and leave where you are or change what your mind is doing. Right here, right now is the place where the way unfolds from. And Surgeon Mel Weitzman, who's the abbot of Berkeley Zen Center, who's also a teacher of mine, and I've practiced at Berkeley Zen Center and still do for many years. Mel used to be a painter and taxi driver in San Francisco in the 50s before he took up Zen. He was kind of a fringe beat generation guy, hip guy, and smoked a lot of pot. And he, as a young man, he started going to Suzuki Roshi's San Francisco Zen Center and really just loved it. And he took to Zazen and he loved Suzuki Roshi. And he said, he gave a talk once at Berkeley Zen Center in which he was saying that as soon as he started sitting, he realized that sobriety was what he wanted. He started to appreciate this clear mind that he had from sitting, and he lost the desire to get high. And some people don't have that extreme switch, but there's that real, I know what he means. It was very kind of inspiring to hear the reminder that sobriety or clarity of mind is just a really precious gift that we have. Even if we're not feeling so good, even if we're suffering, we can be sitting upright in our suffering with clarity of mind. And it's like looking out of a clean window. You can just really see out this glass because it's just been cleaned. So, or if you think of the sky, the blue sky, bring this sense of clarity. You have it. You have access to it. And it can be a help to you even when you are suffering and when you're unhappy about something. Maybe finding that clarity can really be helpful. One of the meal chants that we have says, desiring the natural order of mind, let us be free from greed, hate, and delusion. We eat to support life and to practice the way of Buddha. So I love that too. Desiring the natural order of mind. It's there in us, the natural order of mind, and let's let it flourish. Let's let it bloom. So another thing about taking in toxic substances is that we owe it to ourselves to take good care of ourselves, but we don't just owe it to ourselves. Our body and our health doesn't really belong only to ourselves. It belongs to the people who love us, the people we love. It belongs to the people we interact with. It actually belongs to the whole planet in a way. Our body is part of all life on Earth. It's part of the web of life on Earth. When we get sick, as we will, inevitably, all of us, at some stage or other, but then the life on the planet is sick. And if we are keeping ourselves as wholesome as we can, we're helping the wholesomeness of the interconnected web of life, too. But we can see it more immediately with the people we're close to. And when 10 years ago, when my son told me what I had been hoping would happen, but I was afraid would never happen, and he said, "Oh, guess what? You're going to be a grandma!" And I was just so excited. And almost maybe my first reaction was just joy for him and my daughter-in-law and everything. But right away I had this thought, oh my God, because I was kind of old. I was, 64, because I was getting old. And my first thought was, oh boy, I've really got to take care of myself. I've really got to pay attention to taking care of myself because I want to live long enough to, maybe I'll even get to see her graduate from high school. So anyway, I should have been thinking of those things already, but I noticed how the idea of a granddaughter who was going to be living into the future made me suddenly think, oh, I've got to be careful with my diet, I've got to really exercise a lot, and stuff like that. So it was a way of seeing that reminding me that my body doesn't belong just to me. And even if I didn't have a granddaughter, if I really get I'm not taking care of myself, and I'll probably need help down the line anyway, but I'll need it sooner if I'm, a drug addict or an alcoholic or a person who never exercises and falls down all the time. So we know this, so saying that having a healthy body is something that we all want, yes, and it doesn't necessarily persuade us to keep away from toxic substances, because it sounds so schoolmarmish, but it's good to keep remembering, well, what is this body that is my home here? What does it want? It's very hard. I mean, and then there's the whole question of addiction, which I haven't really been talking about, but because it's possible to take in toxic substances and not be addicted to them. I mean, it's still an issue, even if you don't have addictions. You still want to not poison yourself with things. But addiction brings in another issue about it, and you don't just have the same kind of freedom of choice if you really fall into addiction. And I know something about it from my history with smoking. I was a very heavy smoker as a young person, and I smoked for, I don't know, almost 20 years, 18 years. And I quit a couple of times and then couldn't keep it up and went back to smoking. And then I did finally quit when I was doing some backpacking, and that helped me to do it because I couldn't breathe very well. I couldn't hike up those mountains. I was so short of breath. But before I quit, I was remembering and thinking about it and thinking how incredibly self-centered one can become because of an addiction. And I remember I was working at a job in Boston, and I was getting a ride to work from Watertown, Mass. To Boston every morning with one of my coworkers, and I was working at the Atlantic Monthly magazine, and he had this little VW Beetle, and he would pick me up in my house. He did not smoke. I got into the car, immediately lit up a cigarette, and it took no time at all for his little VW Beetle to be completely full of smoke. You could see it. And it never occurred to me to say, oh, I'm so sorry, do you mind if I smoke? And it didn't even occur to him, because this was long enough ago, to say, would you please not smoke in my car? Luckily, that consciousness has changed, and I don't think smokers would be quite as clueless as I was. But there's the need for my need for the cigarette, for the nicotine, I guess just really blinded me. And it's kind of embarrassing to think of. But how we deal with that it's a kind of whole other question. But I think recognizing that if we are addicted to something, to recognize along the way, okay, how can we, as we try to figure out how to stop the addiction, whatever way you want to go, how can you also bring forth some awareness about the selfishness of it and the harm that it's causing other people. And I don't really want to, it's not for me to get into talking about addictive programs and recovery and stuff, because that's a huge area. But I just want for us to think about how it's not just drugs and alcohol, it's also the behaviors, as we know, can be addicting, but it really can be things like email. I feel like I have a kind of an addiction to email, which I hate. But But I open my email, and then there are all these little blue dots, and I go down and want to see what's in them. And if I have to go somewhere, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I think, well, I'll just check my email before I go, I have a tendency to think, well, I'll just open one more. It's like a little nugget. Well, maybe it'll have something good. It's somebody wanting to talk to me. Ooh, maybe they're going to tell me something wonderful. Well, and if it's one of my son's names or somebody I love, I want to open that email. But they're just endless. I could stay there all day and never be doing anything else. So I have to watch that, and just, again, it's helping me to say, oh, I want to cultivate clarity of mind. And this is a world right now that's in a lot of trouble, and we need clarity of mind, and I need clarity of mind. And so let me think of it positively instead of putting myself down. I just want to think about, okay, what am I going to do to cultivate clarity of mind and to enjoy and be grateful for the mind that I do have, and to look out this window and let the window be clear and clean and see what's out there. And the precept is kind of an invitation to throw in my lot with everybody else, because we all are practicing in this world together. We all have the same desires that we're subject to, and we all have the possibility of clarity of mind, and we all have the invitation to cultivate it. And we're all in the same boat together, and I can't get out of the boat by taking drugs or drinking wine or doing email. I'm not going to get out of the boat. I'm going to still be in the boat with all of you, and we're moving along together here. And if I'm engaged in obsessive compulsive actions and things, well, I'm not going to be able to row the boat, do my part in the boat very well. But if I really cultivate a mind that sees clearly, then I can see who's in the boat with me, and we can talk about it, and we can cooperate, and we can row our boat the way we want to, and enjoy each other in the process. And so I think this fifth precept can really help us with that. And just to say it again, I vow not to intoxicate body or mind of self or others, but to cultivate a mind that sees clearly. So I'll stop there, and I would really invite comments and questions or whatever from you. Yes?
Thank you, Susan. This idea of interpreting the vows in a way that's appropriate reminds me of a talk I heard yesterday, where this man asked his teacher, he said, the middle way seems so narrow and difficult at times. Mm. And his teacher just laughed and laughed and laughed, and he said, oh no, he said, you just make the middle way so wide that you never fall off.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. I love that. Yeah. It's in the middle of the two edges. Yeah. Yes?
I like the difference you do between the commandments and the precepts, and that you really, by taking a vow, you are the beginning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it appeals to my rebelliousness.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you can be as anti-authoritarian as you like. You can still take a vow. And also, the vow, I didn't mention this, but I love the word vow, because vow is like, for me, it just means I'm jumping in totally. It's like jumping off a diving board into the pool. I vow. And sometimes I feel like I don't even have to have anything come after the word vow. You can just say, this is my attitude towards life. I vow. And it's like, I'm here, and I'm going to do my best. I vow. Yes.
One of the great gifts and pleasures of mindfulness practice for me is to see that mindfulness and clarity of mind has its own joy.
Yes.
It's a great gift.
Yes.
that's the that's a motivation for me, not so much avoiding something.
Yes, exactly.
Is, what's the greater joy?
Yeah. So you felt that gift more and
Sorry?
more. You felt that gift of clarity the more you practice.
Practice for it.
Yeah.
And stillness of mind, not just
Yes.
clarity of mind, stillness
Yes.
of mind.
Yes.
I read somewhere for our senior citizens that crossword puzzles really engage the mind and keep active and alert, so you don't have to feel guilty.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate
You're doing something productive.
it. Except that I should do harder and harder ones. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Keisha.
I appreciate the reminder of, we're living for the benefit of all beings. It just, somehow it just takes pressure off.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
sharing with friends and people lately that I've been in this sort of dark phase where I'm having a lot of anxiety and different stuff going on. And I'm using all these tools in my toolkit to try to get my joy back. And one of the readings I read the other day said something like, if you know the why you're here, then the how you're here
Yeah.
is not as.
Yes.
So just hearing you say like, I'm just simply here for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
takes the pressure off of being a certain thing.
Yeah.
Just to like in every way live the precepts and
Yeah.
And open up to life that way.
Yeah, and that can be the why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. To be fully present, to just not holding yourself back. And for senior citizens, I think it can get harder maybe to not hold back. Maybe one can start to feel cautious, or and of course you have to be careful of falling and don't walk where you're going to trip or something. But don't live your life in fear of falling down, but rather in another way. The older we get, the more we can let go. We have to let go of stuff anyway as we get older, and let go of self-clinging and just really release ourselves into the moment and into whatever we can do for the benefit of others. There's a Shantideva, who, I'll end with this, wrote a wonderful treatise called Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life in India in I think it was the 7th century after Christ. And it's all in sort of quatrains. There's like 1,000 little verses about how to live as a bodhisattva, as one who is really trying to help all beings. So one of the verses that I love says, mounted on the horse of bodhicitta that puts to flight all mournful weariness, what lucid person could be in despair riding such a steed from joy to joy? So that cheers me up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our host today,
Hi, yeah, I'm your host today, so please stay and enjoy the fellowship of the Sangha. There's some hot water for tea and an array of courtesans. The cookies are completely vegan. I just found out that, like, white sugar apparently could be considered not vegan because in the final stage of refinement, it's filtered through bone. So
Through what?
it's filtered through bone.
Oh.
And so anyway, make your own choices.
Thank you for the warning.
Brownies have some white sugar icing. And there's some, I guess, some gluten-free olive oil cake. Is that right?
It has eggs in it.
So it's not. Anyway, so there's an array of stuff. I'll be coming around with the Dong Bowl, so There's a sign-up sheet on the credenza over by the wall where people can sign up for the newsletter, our mailing list. And at 12:30, some people gather at the front door and go out to lunch, and that's everybody's welcome to join that.
Thanks. Clint?
Well, as most of you know, part of our engaged practice work is to provide a dinner once a month for a homeless shelter that we do the Lancashire Youth Center. And so every now and then I have to kind of put out a call for more volunteers because people leave for whatever reasons. So if that's something that's interesting to you, we do the third Saturday of every month, and it's just, I don't know, about 4 or 5 hours, and it's usually people find it a fun thing to do. Please see me outside, and I'll put you on the volunteer list. We didn't do dinner for this February just because I didn't have enough people available as volunteers to be on a cooking team. So I kind of feel a little bad about it. I try to avoid that from happening, but it does happen from time to time. So I would like some new blood into the volunteer list.
Jay, newsletter, do you need help?
I'm sorry?
Yeah. Do we need help with the newsletter?
Hey, I'm the newsletter guy.
Oh, sorry.
I'm still thinking about filtered through phone. We do have our quarterly newsletter to send out, which 2/3 or so are sent to prisoners who I think most of them can't get online because everybody else can get online and see our newsletter. And it goes up and down. It's gone down before, but it's back up. I mean, some guys get out. Some guys get out, but other guys get in. So it's a renewing process there. Anyway, we need to fold and stamp and label and do that in a little effort for those of us who haven't been before. We get together after the tea and refreshments time and put it all together. And it'd be great to have about at least 8 guys here if you can stay for, we did it really rapidly last time, half an hour, maybe a little more, to put this all together would be great. And I'd like to see hands of commitment. Please.
Vows, you mean?
Vows. No more. Come on, guys. Okay, thank you.
Any other announcements?
Yes. GUF is presenting a day-long retreat here on March 25th. Heather Sundberg is going to be leading us, and the theme is celebrating community, generosity, and gratitude. It's free, so we're going to be providing refreshments and lunch. We do ask you to sign up so we know for how many people to plan for. There are some flyers on the table, so please consider coming. It should be very nice.
Also on the table are free copies of Queer Dharma. If you would like to take the books, they're free. And then Susan has copies of her books available for sale out there as well. Okay, so let's close. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.